Rob Reiner, Michelle Reiner, found in their home, slain. Sometimes the word shocking is just overused, but I can't think of any other word. And we're going to jump into it in this episode of About the Law. I'm attorney Andrew Myers. This is About the Law. With me, our co-host, Yoli Medina, California attorney. Hi, Yoli.
Hi there. How are you?
And a special guest, Unfiltered Lucky. Unfiltered Lucky, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
I'm hanging in there. Lucky, I said in the intro that this was shocking, and I truly do say that. I mean, I was a newsman. I've been practicing law, and so I read the paper, and nothing shocks me anymore. But when I heard this news about Rob Reiner and his wife, I was shocked. I thought, no, somebody made a mistake. I mean, what was your reaction?
I thought the same thing, because when I first heard the report, it just said that there were two people whose lives were taken in a house that Rob Reiner owned. So at first I was thinking maybe it was a tenant situation or something like that. And then maybe 15 minutes later is when they released the information that it was actually Rob and Michelle Reiner. So I kind of had the same reaction that you did.
How about you, Yoli? What were your initial thoughts when you first heard the news?
Well, I heard the news that there were two unalivings in the house, in Rob Reiner's house. So that's all I heard, and I didn't know what to make of it. And then I wasn't watching the news or anything. And then later I heard that the son was arrested, and I thought, what? I know nothing about Nick Reiner. I mean, of course I know Rob Reiner, but I was, whoa. And then the manner in which they were found, allegedly, that he used a knife, and that's been confirmed in the charging documents, that's even more shocking.
Yeah, the fact that a knife was allegedly used, the fact that it's a family that was raised together, the fact that it's Rob Reiner. I mean, all those great movies that he had directed. When Harry Met Sally, a real classic movie. But me, being of the age that I am, I just have these memories of him playing the meathead in All in the Family. I mean, what a great show that was! What great entertainment that was! And so, he went on to have a fantastic career in Hollywood. He was 78. Wife Michelle was 68. From where I sit, I don't think that's that old. They were both very active, but again, it was a little bit shocking. Now we have video cuts of an interview. We have video cuts of Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson was actually of the fame of a lot of cases. Harvey Weinstein. He was actually a prosecutor in the Phil Spector case, and obviously a case that Yoli and I have been covering, every week practically for the last 2 years. He represented Karen Reed,
right?
And one of Alan Jackson's more memorable quotes is, he's the only attorney in America that can say he had a client acquitted twice, which is true. There were two trials, and in the first trial, the judge just failed to properly, poll the jury. Went all the way up to the appeals courts in Massachusetts. She just didn't poll the jury correctly, but they made him try the case again. What's special about this case to you, Yoli?
Well, the fact that, from what I've heard, Nick had a lot of mental problems. He was drug addicted for a long time, for most of his life. And his parents tried to help him. And, in trying to help him, they ended up, being in a worse situation. Now, he's presumed innocent until, Nick is presumed innocent until he is found guilty by a jury. But I don't know what his defenses are going to be. But that's the shocking part, is that it seemed like his parents were really trying to help. And at some point, it became too much, I think. And I mean, we still don't know the details exactly what happened. We just know they were unalived. There was a knife used. He was found they arrested him near a gas station, and he had spent the night at a Santa Monica hotel. And that's pretty much it. So it's sad. It's very sad. This
Um,
this is the kind of case that I like to get into because it involves some kind of mental health issue.
Lucky, we often hear, I hate to paint with a broad brush, but we often do hear of high profile people in Hollywood having issues with addiction and other personal problems like that. How do you think it is that, apparently, people do go to rehab. People are rehab. People live out their life. How do you think it is that, this young man, Nick Reiner, ended up allegedly going from all of the rehab and the other issues he had to allegedly committing an atrocity like this? How does that happen?
That's a good question. I mean, they said that he had gone to rehab, I want to say 18 times, and that he had been to rehab 18 times, beginning from when he was 14 years old. So it sounds like he had some problems early on, in his early childhood. But something that I find really tragic about this is, and it goes along with what Yoli said about, his mental issues, is imagine what it would take to take your own parents' lives with a knife. I mean, like you said, it's shocking. It's shocking that someone could do this to their own parents, their parents who have tried to help them. And obviously his parents, rehab's not cheap. I mean, obviously, Rob and Michelle Reiner had done everything that they could to try to help him out. And there's definitely something wrong there. I think that, to have the ability to take your own parents' lives in such a personal manner, using a knife, it's definitely shocking.
And it's a very personal manner. I mean, shootings and, God forbid, poisonings and things like that we all read about, those of us that read true crime. Sure. But yeah, you're right. Knifing, I mean, it's just something else. Now, what I found interesting, and we'll get into it more, Yoli, because you're a California attorney, the hearing, Mr. Reiner, Nick Reiner, appeared in the Los Angeles Superior Court for the first time. It was supposed to be an arraignment, but it wasn't an arraignment. So the whole hearing, and I've never seen a hearing that was quite so short, the whole hearing was a minute and 20 seconds. And here it is.
Went on behalf of Mr. Reiner, who's currently present in court in custody.
Thank you.
Morning, Your Honor. He'll be bailing for the people.
John, put people on.
Thank you. And counsel, how would you like to proceed today?
Your Honor, if we could, I would like to ask for a continuance of the arraignment. I want to plead at this juncture. It's too early. We've coordinated with counsel from the DA's office, and January 7th, with the court's permission, will be a convenient date for us to come back for an arraignment.
Thank you. At this time, I'll take a waiver, speedy arraignment waiver for your client.
Thank you.
Mr. Reiner, do you have a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy arraignment? Your counsel is requesting that your arraignment be continued to January 7, 2026. Do you waive your right to a speedy arraignment so that your arraignment can be heard on January 7, 2026? And does counsel join in the waiver?
I join, Your
The
Honor.
court finds that the defendant has made a knowing and intelligent waiver of his right to a speedy arraignment, and that his counsel joins in that waiver. Matter set January 7, 2026 for arraignment in this department. Bail to stand at no bail. Anything further on that case?
Not by the defense, Your Honor.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yoli, usually an arraignment is a pretty simple thing, at least in the two states that I'm licensed in, Massachusetts and New Hampshire. The case is called, you go up there, you might have one or two preliminary things, but then either the defendant, pleads not guilty, or you enter that plea for them, or if they stand silent, which does happen rarely, the court enters not guilty. But that didn't happen here. It wasn't an arraignment. No plea has been entered. What are your insights on that as a California attorney?
Well, normally at arraignments, sometimes the attorney hasn't even had a chance to have a discussion with their client. He was arrested not just a few days ago, and then Alan Jackson, we learned he's representing him. And Alan Jackson probably has not had a time to discuss with his client how he wants to plea. And that discussion might take more than one more than one time. There might be an initial discussion and then another one. And in this case, he waived his arraignment. He has a right to a speedy arraignment. He waived it. But in other cases, if there's good cause, meaning, for example, the good cause in this case would be that it's too early, as, Mr. Jackson said, the court just confirmed with the defendant that he waived his right to a speedy arraignment. So they do get continued. There's nothing strange about it. And a lot of times the attorney just hasn't had a chance to talk to his client in depth about the charges. So.
All right. I was surprised. Lucky. Have you ever seen anything quite like this?
I mean, that was pretty quick. They got it over in less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They did.
As a matter of fact, I was talking to one of my friends' son works. He's going to USC Law School, and he works in the public defender's office as a part of his schooling. He's doing an internship there, and he said arraignments take like 2 minutes, 1 minute. He said sometimes when there is actually an arraignment, where the person's actually going to plead guilty or not guilty. And he said, and then, he did a rotation in the civil court, and he said, oh my God, the civil court is just so long and drawn out. Motions to compel take hours sometimes. It's just the differences. So yeah, that's how it is in California.
All right. I just thought it was a little bit unusual from where I sit. Usually, the arraignments themselves are pretty quick. You go in there and, it's quite likely you haven't seen a police report, and you get that 99 times out of 100. And there's an arraignment. If there's a question of bail, that can be raised at the arraignment quite often. But Mr. Nick Reiner, is being held without bail. I would imagine it'll continue that way. Now, interestingly, right after the court hearing in Los Angeles Superior Court, Alan Jackson came out and made a statement in which he said, hey, people, do not make any prejudgments about this case. I thought that was interesting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just have a couple of quick words. First of all, and most importantly, this is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. We all recognize that. Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. These need to be thoroughly but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. We ask that process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward, not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date. And that's all I have to say at this point. There may be more at some other point, but today we're going to rest on where we stand procedurally, which is this was a continuance of arraignment. Nothing happened today substantively. We'll be back for an arraignment in the same department on the 7th of January, and we'll see you then.
Lucky, what do you read into that? Anything?
I'm not an attorney, but when I watch,
but you're a smart guy.
Well, thank you. But when I watch Alan Jackson, I feel like he's very calculated. I feel like he puts thought into what he says, and I feel like if he's saying something, then there's a reason for it. So it's going to be interesting. I've read a lot about Alan Jackson, and it sounds like this could be a pretty serious situation. And I think that I was reading the paper that you sent me earlier, and it sounds like he wields a lot of power.
Well, he's a unique attorney, and I'll try and bring that up. I don't know why I can't seem to make it. My tech people are not here to help me today. My tech people, I lost Lainey. unfortunately, on good terms. But this is an article that came from just in the nick of time, and it was posted on the True Crime Everything page. And he reads into a little bit of it. He talks about how, start at this paragraph here. Jackson didn't just prosecute when he was a prosecutor, minor cases. He handled serious, high-stakes matters when he moved into private defense work. He brought that institutional knowledge with him, the Phil Spector case and national recognition. Jackson is best known to the public for his role in the Phil Spector murder case, one of the most notorious and heavily covered trials in recent decades. Now, this is the part of this post that I found interesting. Alan Jackson typically represents defendants facing murder or attempted murder charges, allegations of extreme or personal violence, serious mental health defenses, potential life sentences, intense media attention. And at least those last three are present here, aren't they?
It seems
Yeah.
like, yeah, it seems like,
I
yeah.
was just gonna say, I feel like all of them are I feel like all the ingredients are in there.
Yeah, and we can't jump to conclusions about what happened because we don't know what his defenses are going to be. There's a number of defenses that could be raised, like self-defense or alternate perpetrators or just various other defenses. And if we're cautious about what we talk about and cautious about our speculation, I think that's the point that Alan Jackson wanted to put forth, is that to be cautious about what, don't jump to conclusions, don't label him guilty yet until he is found guilty, because there's going to be a lot of complex things coming out about the family likely. And that's what I think, that there's going to be a complexity in the family dynamics. And we already know that Nick has been in rehab or was in rehab for 18 times in the past. So there is a bit of a complexity here. And, that kind of unaliving with a knife, and, he could have been in psychosis. There might be a defense that he was insane. There's all kinds of defenses that he could raise that I'm not raising at the moment, but, so we have to be cautious. That's all.
Right.
I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that it has been reported, we don't know, none of us were there, but it's been widely reported that the night before, the three of them had been at a Christmas party of Conan O'Brien's, and Rob and Michelle were having a private conversation with one of the people that was there, and Nick came over and stood there and attempted to get in on the conversation. He was told, this is a private conversation, and he did not react well to that. And others at that party, apparently, according to the reports, which I have right here, he expressed his displeasure, and he was somewhat angry about that. So again, I agree with you. We shouldn't prejudge the case. We should allow the case to play out. But in the media, that seems to be something that really set him off. What do you think of all that, Lucky?
Well, and I also think that, it was also reported that he had allegedly had an argument with another comedian at this Christmas party. I can't remember the comedian's name, but, and I'm not sure if this is something that I read, is that it was actually his sister who told law enforcement that they should look into her brother, that, that he had been showing some odd tendencies and that he had a tendency to be violent. So I thought that was rather interesting as well.
Yeah. And that I heard that reported as well. And, we can't, the accuracy of the reports are something else, but that's what I heard as well. And if he was, his drug of choice, I don't know what his drug of choice was in terms of his addiction, but sometimes certain drugs can make you go into a psychosis, and they can affect your brain permanently if you take them enough to make you not right in the head, not wired right. So, that's going to be another thing I'd like to know was, his drug of choice. What was he addicted to? Was it anything, everything? Well, heroin, meth, what? So that's what I would want to know if it comes out. I don't know if it's going to come out like right now, but I'd like to know.
Now,
Well, Lucky, go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I had heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I had heard it reported last night that it was meth, and that
Mm,
he would go on these binges and sometimes be up for days at a time and days at a time.
mm,
And that's when he would run into trouble is,
mm.
when he was on these binges.
Yeah, that can definitely put you in a altered reality, altered state.
Yeah.
It's so sad because when I don't know, it just seems so surreal. And you think about the Menendez brothers. I don't know if you guys remember the Menendez brothers.
Yeah,
How can you
absolutely.
forget the
Yeah.
Menendez brothers?
Right.
How can you
Well,
forget
well,
them?
they went in with guns and rifles and whatnot and shot their parents, and then tried to act like they didn't. And they were saying, "Oh my God, we found our parents" on the 911 call and everything. And it turned out they were the ones who did it. And they found out through their therapist, and their therapist did something that was unethical and that whole thing.
Right.
But you look at the differences between this and presuming that Nick is innocent, but just the facts of this case so far and the facts of the Menendez brothers, you see a difference. And the whole reason why the Menendez brothers did not get out of jail was because of their behavior in jail, in prison,
Right.
not jail. That's the reason why they didn't get out, because their behavior in prison was bad. And so you can't say that this was a psychotic event amongst the brothers, that they were in fear for their lives. They planned the whole thing. And so
Right.
the pattern of behavior continued in prison. So that's why they didn't get out. And in this case, you have someone who has a history of mental illness, drug addiction, and flips out, and he's now charged with the unalivings of his parents, which is so sad.
Yeah, he's charged with the first degree. As Lucky pointed out, he had gone into rehab as early as the age of 14. And by the time he was 19, he had been in rehab multiple times. And apparently there was some resentment because, his parents were footing the bill for rehab. Rehab is very expensive. Not that someone in this class doesn't have the funds, but apparently there was some, rough love or rough parenting. And so there was some resentment that had been harbored all of those years among Nick. And the other thing about this case that really disturbs me is that it was the 28-year-old sister. They had 3 children, one brought in from the previous marriage. Romy discovered Rob Reiner with his neck slashed. She's only 28 years old. She discovered them, and she didn't discover the mother. She'd only discovered the father, and she ran out of the house, in a state of, who knows what. She ran out and called 911 at 3:30 in the afternoon, and it wasn't until 9:15 that night that they actually found Nick. But I'm just thinking, this is a legal podcast, so we're focusing on the legal and the potential mental aspect of the defense. But what must have gone through Romy's mind, and what kind of a state must she be in now, not just heading into the holidays, but just at any time discovering your father like that? I mean, what must her state of mind be like?
It must be, she's probably in shock.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
And I
wouldn't
guess
judge her behavior. I mean, I would never judge a person's behavior if they've seen something like this of a family member and suspecting that your sibling did it. I mean,
right.
she may be, I mean, she may be forgiving of her brother. She may understand that it's part of his mental illness, but who knows? I mean, right now she's in shock.
Absolutely. And she lived right across the street. So,
Yeah.
that was the thing. And from what I've heard, and there was a cinematographer that just did an interview with, I want to say, the New York Post. And this cinematographer was very good friends with Rob Reiner. I think that he said he had done 3 movies with Rob Reiner, including the one that Nick Reiner actually wrote, which
Right.
I think was called Being Charlie.
Yes.
And this cinematographer stayed with them for a period of time while Nick was living at the house. And this cinematographer said that they were a very close family, that they were a very loving family, that they sat down at the same table and ate dinner. They were very traditional, that they were a very close family. So I imagine that, Romy Reiner is definitely in shock.
Yeah.
Well, and at the same time, I hate to admit this, but over the years, I'm not in Hollywood, but I've been to some Christmas parties where things happen and people, it's like at the end of the year, maybe the company is paying for this holiday party. Who knows what happened at Conan O'Brien's holiday party, but things can get out of control at a party like that. And that would seem possibly to be a stimulus for all of this. I have another video cut that I want to play, and you guys know more about this guy than I do, but journalist Perez Hilton told Vinnie Politan on Court TV that you guys say, the family was close. That may well be. But apparently what he said was that it was well known in Hollywood that there were family problems. And not only that, but the aggressive, angry nature of Nick was also something that Nick himself admitted, and it was well known.
Yeah.
We've learned that Nick publicly even spoke about his violent tendencies in the past, as was mentioned on the show a little bit ago. In a podcast interview a few years ago, Nick Reiner talked about how his parents had sequestered him in the guest house and how he was in a drug-fueled rage and just started punching things and destroying the television and the lamp. But the way that Rob Reiner's son was recounting this story, he literally laughed. It was as if he was boasting about this experience, that if that were me, I would have expressed remorse. I would have expressed, shock that I did that in a drug-fueled state. But no, he seemed proud of what he had done. And I can only imagine all of the other things that he did privately that the public doesn't know about yet.
That's unique. That is a unique individual, making not only to have those personality traits, but to admit those personality traits.
Well, I saw that podcast that he's referring to, and it was a podcast about recovery. And you got to take it into context, because he did laugh, but in my opinion, he was recounting how crazy he was, and he was laughing in disbelief of himself, is how I took it. Okay. This was a podcast where everybody's talking about their recovery and the crazy things they did. And, and he did laugh, but, I don't know. You got to take it in context. And I guess you could look at it both ways, that he didn't show remorse, was laughing. You could also look at it like he was laughing because it was so ridiculous what he did. And in terms of violent tendencies, that could be the drugs. That may not be his ingrained personality. It could be the drugs that are affecting him that way. Now, we don't have much of a base to judge him by, because he was in rehab when he was 14. so we don't know how he was like, before drugs.
Well, and the reports that I've read and that I've heard, he was doing a lot at 14. He was out and about at a very, very young age.
And what do you mean he was out and about at a very young age? You mean he was getting in trouble? Does he have a police record? We know he went to rehab, but does he have any kind of a criminal record at all that we know of?
I don't know that he has a criminal record. That's not even something I had looked into yet. But I had heard a report last night, and like I said, this is alleged, that he was, ordering illegal workers at 14 years old, that he was purchasing women at 14 years old, and that he was actually asking his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner, for the money, and that's what he was doing at 14.
That's amazing. That's really, I want to run back to this article that we looked at before, because I think there were a couple other things that I wanted to look at. I ran down the factors that people think that Alan Jackson has brought into other cases. He is known for being highly strategic, extremely controlled in public statements, and deliberate with language. When Jackson speaks, every word is chosen carefully, especially early in a case. I think we saw that in that statement that he made earlier to the press. Why his wording matters in this case. When Jackson told reporters that Nick Reiner had not been medically cleared to appear in court, that phrasing was significant. It signals that doctors, not lawyers, are determining readiness, and that mental and or psychiatric stability is likely a central issue. That goes right into your wheelhouse, Yoli. Before I turn it over to you to make some obvious comments, I hope, maybe not so obvious. This court hearing was supposed to have been held on Tuesday after Michelle and Rob were found, but apparently he was not medically cleared. And so he had said, my client's not medically cleared. So they put it over to Wednesday. So one day.
Right.
But what do you read into that, Yoli?
Well, it could be a number of things. It could be that he is coming off of the drugs and he's not stable. And he's not going to be able to understand what the heck's going on or be able to plead to anything. It could be that he has psychological impact from what he did. He may be in shock. He may have been in a drug-fueled rage and now has come down and has learned what he's done. And, he's not psychologically stable. Could be a number of things, but definitely his mental health is going to come into play in this case for sure. But I just think that in this case, it's not, I don't find it strange that the arraignment was continued. But yeah.
Do you mean continued from Tuesday to Wednesday, or continued from December all the way to January 7th?
Both continuances.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it's pretty standard. And you said before that, and I was listening when you said that the reason might be that Alan Jackson hadn't had an opportunity to speak to Nick Reiner, but isn't it just standard to enter a not guilty plea? Isn't that just something you do? Just my client enters a not guilty. Okay, next case.
No, he has to talk to the client. I mean, he has to have a discussion with the client. I mean, this isn't just something that you take over as a criminal defense attorney and defend at all costs without talking to your client about how he wants to plead.
Okay.
Because what if he wants to plead not guilty? I mean, what if he wants to plead guilty?
Well, I can't see that. Can you? I mean, let's take a look legally at the options. He could plead guilty. I doubt that. He could plead not guilty. He could plead, I'm not sure how they do it in California. Would he plead not guilty by reason of insanity, or would he plead guilty and then raise the insanity defense? I'm not sure how they do that in California, but I think those are the options. Or
Right.
they could take it all the way to trial. With the evidence, and again, we don't know, but it would seem, I would hope the LA police did a good investigation, unlike in some other cases where we're not going to mention them right now. But if they did a proper investigation, it would seem that they have a good case, and it wouldn't seem that this would be a case to take all the way to trial, would it?
I don't know what's going on in the minds of, Alan Jackson and his client, but there definitely has to be a discussion, especially in a case like this, where the allegations are that he has a history of drug abuse, allegedly. I mean, that's been reported and it seems to be well known, but I still say allegedly, that he had mental health issues. So definitely there has to be a discussion with his attorney before he enters a plea so that he does it knowingly and in good sound mind,
Yeah.
I think also when I'm watching what Alan Jackson is saying, and he's saying words like complicated, it makes me think psychological. It makes me think that there's going to be a lot of facets to this case, because when he says complicated and don't jump to judgment, and like Yoli said with the Menendez brothers, there was that whole background about their dad and about how he was abusing them and stuff like that. And I think that's where it got really complicated, because it could absolutely cause emotional and mental, issues with those brothers. So when I hear Alan Jackson say complicated, it makes me think psychological. It makes me think that there's there's more to this background, to this story. You know, I feel like there had to be some kind of build up to this. Like maybe it wasn't something that just randomly happened. I feel like maybe this is something that had been building up, and you know, it has something to do with Nick Reiner's mental state.
That makes a lot of sense, and so it may well have been building up for a period of time, and then you know, what happened at Conan O'Brien's party was just the thing that set him off. That was the final straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
And what I'm not clear on is whether his parents took him to the party or he just showed up, because I heard reported that he was wearing like a hoodie. He wasn't dressed, you know, and then in other reports I heard that his parents took him to the party. So I'm not sure, and I don't know how far Conan O'Brien's home is from their home. How they got home, you know, was it walking distance? Was it You know, I mean, this is the same area where Nicole Brown Simpson was unalived.
Not far at all. That's right. I read that too. Yeah.
So this is I mean, it's a ritzy area, but you know, a lot of celebrities walk to each other's homes, and you know, it's interesting. I just want to know the proximity to where Conan O'Brien's home was at the party, assuming his party was at his home, and where they live. Because if they walked back, or you know, did Nick leave and walk back, or was he lying in wait for the parents to come home? Because it doesn't sound like they were in the same place when they were unalive, because the daughter found the father first, Rob Reiner first. So there's a lot of questions, and you know, that I'm interested in finding out. But you know, I may just try to go to that hearing on January 7th, even though it's going to be like 5 minutes.
That would be awesome if you went. Yeah, arraignments are generally not very. Arraignments are not generally very long, but we do learn facts. I mean, where I practice at an arraignment, you usually get a police report, and you get the charging sheet. You find out more details about it. That would be awesome if you go.
That would be.
Yeah, because I'm really interested in this mental health aspect, and in other cases, you know, it's raised, but it's not truly genuine sometimes. You know, sometimes it's just raised just to raise as a defense because there might be something there. But you know, when you have something documented, you know, in the record, you know, I'm interested in those cases.
Well, we're not going to dox you in this episode. I'm sorry. I'll let you jump in after I make this point real quick, Lucky. We're not going to dox you in this episode, Yoli, but you do have a mental health background before you got into the law. We're going to do an episode upcoming. We've discussed this, talking about our pasts and our background. So you have some special knowledge that a lot of people don't have, and that's going to be very helpful as we follow this case. I mean, we're talking about how we don't know all the facts, and you've raised a lot of good questions. Hopefully we'll have answers to those questions sooner rather than later, but I want to tell our viewers that, we'll stay on the case. I'm sorry, Lucky, I interrupted you.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to say some questions that I have are, you know, they said that after it all happened, that he went to the Pierside Hotel outside of Santa Monica, and they said that was 4 miles away from the house. So I'm curious how he got there. How did he get to this hotel, and how did he check into this hotel? Because they're reporting that his hotel room, there was body fluid all over this hotel room. There was body fluid on the sheets and in the restroom. And I'm curious, did he walk in and check in to this hotel covered in body fluid, or exactly how did that happen? Because they said that he checked in at approximately 4 a.m. And somebody, they said there's a security camera in that area that saw him walking away from the house in Brentwood at, I believe it was 12:30 a.m. And then he checks into the Pierside Hotel outside of Santa Monica at approximately 4 a.m. But they said they found body fluid all over this hotel. So it makes me wonder, you know, how did he get there, first of all?
Right.
And did he check in covered in body fluid? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
How could you check in at 4 o'clock in the morning and not raise some suspicions if you're covered in body fluid? I mean,
right. And it looks like a nice hotel. It looks like a really nice hotel from the pictures that I saw. So, those would be the questions I had is, what happened directly afterward? How did he get to this hotel? And when he checked in, what did the front desk people think when he checked in at 4 a.m.?
No,
And there
it's
has to be security footage of him checking into that How could there not be security footage? I'm sorry, Yoli, go ahead.
Well, here's the other thing is he may have checked in before the unalivings and then checked in and then went back and then came to his room. But still, even if he came to his room through the back way or not through the lobby or wherever, there's cameras. They would see him all bloody. So
There would have to be. There would have to be. Yeah, absolutely.
So I take it with a grain of salt that they say, oh, the bathroom was bloody. Because we don't know yet, and people jump to conclusions, and sometimes the reporting is inaccurate. But those are good questions, Lucky, that I also have, but I didn't mention. You mentioned.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get answers to those questions sooner rather than later. I mean, there have to be security cameras. It's not like Brown University in Providence where this whole thing happened and there's no security footage. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's a whole different case we'll have to talk about someday. But a Ivy League school, one of the top schools in New England, they didn't have security footage of this guy. Unbelievable.
Or, these cases where there is security footage or there is like door cam, it's all blurry. You can't make anything out.
Right. And the audio is terrible. The audio sounds like you're in a fish tank.
I don't want to dox anybody again, but can I tell you a really quick story? I have a client, and I'm not going to give any names, but I have a client that owns a convenience store, and someone had been robbing convenience stores in this area for some time. And when they hit my client's store, he actually had a very good security camera outside. And it's just a convenience store where you run in and buy some beer and a lottery ticket and get out of there. Well, this suspect went out, got in her car and left. He was the only one after about 6 or 7 stores that got hit. He had clear video of her car, her getting into the car, and the license plate. So if a convenience store can have clear video, why doesn't Brown University have it? And I'm just going to assume, because it's too early in this case, I'm just going to assume there's got to be security footage at the hotel. I don't know. What about the neighborhood? You guys have raised questions as to how did Nick, get from Conan O'Brien's party to this hotel? Did he drive? Did he walk out to his car? These mansions in LA, they all have pretty good security cameras, don't they?
Yeah, they do. But, I'm wondering, would they be so quick to turn them over? I think people in that area probably would want to consult with an attorney before turning over cameras. I don't know why, but that's just the feeling I get, that they're very protective of their community, of their people. And if somebody in their community did this, they want to be protective of it, so that there isn't an alarm that, look at this guy, he was known to do this, he was known to be violent, blah, blah, blah. He was living here and nobody did anything. And, at some point it becomes the person's responsibility to take care of themselves for their addiction. But when it's so out of control, how do you help? What, do you 5150 him? Should they have called So I think a lot of the people in the community might be protective, and I may be wrong, but, I just feel like they'll probably have a lawyer before they turn over the security camera.
But Yoli, wouldn't the police have probable cause to get a warrant for that footage? Wouldn't the police, here's what happened. We have a person of interest. He was on that property. Yeah. It's a double homicide. Don't they have probable cause to get a warrant for all the security camera footage in that area? I would think so. I'm not a judge, but I would certainly grant it.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Well, and maybe now that Alan Jackson is on this case, maybe they're just handling everything very, very carefully at this point, because, it seems as though he would have the ability to take advantage of little things that they might do wrong.
Well, yeah. And the other thing is, if you have this guy running around the neighborhood with a knife and going into his house and it's on somebody's security camera, it's almost like, could you be in trouble because it's on your camera? Should you have seen it? Well, I don't see my Ring camera all the time. I mean, I don't see what's going on there. I hear it, but and I know that it's on a computer thing, but you can see the footage of who's dropping off what, and you can talk to people there when you're not home. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, those things would freak me out, honestly.
Well, you wouldn't have to look at it. I mean, all
Just
the
turn it
police
over.
all the police have to do is all they have to do it properly. And the LA police have been known to not do things properly, but all they have to do is get a search warrant properly issued through the court, and then they get that security of it. I don't see what the problem would be. I really don't. If they do it correctly, I don't see what the problem would be.
Well, I also think maybe I'm just too much of a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. But I also think about the security camera footage in the Koberger case and how it's so ridiculous. It's like, you can't even make heads or tails, and you don't even know if the sounds are coming from the home at 1122 King Road. But, alterations to those video cameras, like I would want to make sure that I have an attorney to say, here, take it. I haven't touched it. You can make sure that I haven't touched it and give it to the police. That's
chain of custody.
Chain of custody.
Something that did not happen in the Karen Reed case when the Norfolk County district attorney kind of popped things and sprung things up in the middle of trial one. I mean, proper police procedure requires chain of custody. You pull the stuff out of the security camera, you download it properly, you have the metadata, and once you have the metadata, I mean, it's fairly clear. I mean, you can't doctor that stuff. You can doctor that stuff, but if you don't ask for the metadata, then there are problems, as we saw in the Karen Reed case. But I think it's really interesting that Alan Jackson now has some other big cases going on just a couple of months after the Karen Reed case. I mean, he just handled that case. There were other attorneys like Robert Alisi and David Yannetti and Elizabeth Little, but Alan Jackson really carried the day in my view. No offense to the others, but he really carried the day, and he was very precise. People criticized him for his closing argument because he stood at the podium and he read off his notes, but that's precision. That's precision, and the jury did not hold that against him at all. Got a not guilty twice, I might add. So maybe you're right. Maybe they will handle evidence more carefully, although they should in every case, but maybe they will handle it more carefully now that he set foot in the case. I don't know.
I mean, it's Brentwood, so it seems like there would be cameras all over this neighborhood. I mean, these are celebrities that live in this neighborhood. These are high-powered, very, very wealthy people that live in this neighborhood. It seems as though, especially celebrities, would have issues with people trying to get on their properties and stuff like that. So I can't imagine that neighborhood is not fully covered.
Some have security guards at their homes. So, in that regard, the security guard could hand over the camera footage. It's just now with AI and with, you don't know what you're seeing is real or not. I would just be I would never want to be in a situation like that where my Ring camera caught a crime. I would just take it. I don't want to touch it. Just take it. I didn't touch it, but I would want verification that I didn't touch it, like an attorney to tell them, look, here it is. You can verify that I didn't touch it and it's not altered, because AI is a scary thing.
It's a really scary thing. But again, if the videos are handled properly, you can tell if they've been edited or not. You can tell. I wish we had my old co-host Lainey with us, because she is studying for an engineering degree, and even though she doesn't have it yet, she was good at explaining all of this stuff. I mean, I know the basic rudiments of it, but I mean, what would motivate anyone really to edit the video unless they were a district attorney, an unethical district attorney trying to get a conviction, which is not the case here, I don't think. So you can tell.
There's privacy, though. There's privacy reason, especially in certain states where, you can't just release footage of an area security where there's private conversations going on. I mean, neighbors arguing, things like that. So I don't know how that's being handled in the current day, but there are privacy concerns with those Ring cameras. And if you're going to say, well, your neighbors don't have a right of privacy because they should know that there's ring cameras and that these ring cameras could catch the front yard of the other, your neighbor or something. It's very complicated now, I think.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
you
I
just
mean, I
bring
would feel like, why are you recording my front yard? I think
right.
that I get it. That's a great point, Yoli. And that's something I hadn't thought about with these ring cameras and stuff, because
The
it's
audio.
true. Yep.
Well, what you do is you bring in what they call a taint team, as we've talked about in one of our other cases we're covering, Yoli. And what happens is
Yeah.
you have to disclose all, you have to turn over all of the raw video, and then what's called a taint team goes through it to see if there are privacy concerns, see if there are confidential, privileged conversations, and you keep a log of that, and no one ever sees that except for the judge and the parties. If there are minors, if there's little kids running around, all that stuff gets stripped out, but it gets stripped out only under the supervision of a taint team and a judge. So those are, I'm not saying they're not legitimate concerns. They certainly are, but they're concerns that other courts have dealt with. So again, I don't see why all of the security video should be turned over, immediately to prosecutors if they get a proper search warrant. I mean, remember the Boston Marathon bombings? I think they were about 13 years ago now. And when they happened, it happened on Boylston Street in Boston, which is one of the major drags in Back Bay, Boston. And they immediately got surveillance footage from all the hotels, the restaurants, the Dunkin' Donuts, all the extra hotel. They immediately got all of that, and that led to them catching the guy, within a week. So this stuff is available. The privacy concerns can be dealt with. It's a scary new world that we're in, that you can't walk down the street chewing gum without it being on a security camera somewhere. But
But
these things can be dealt with.
The
Yeah.
difference though with the public, stores and people having cameras like for security for stores is that you're out in public. You don't have a right privacy if you're out in public, just going to a store, as opposed to a ring camera or security footage at a home. You have other people who's, it's not like you're waiving your right of privacy because the next door neighbor has a ring camera or security footage. You know what I mean? But
I
in a
do
store,
not know what you mean, because again, this can be dealt with. I mean, this is a double homicide.
yes,
Two
it can
people
be
are
dealt with.
dead in a horrible, tragic homicide. And
Yeah.
I would think it would be an easy call for a judge to issue an arrest, a search warrant for all of the cameras in that neighborhood, every single one of them. And again, if two little kids are running around in the yard, that's taken out. It's logged. Two minors at XYZ point in the video, that's taken out and it never becomes public. If there's a privileged conversation, if a husband and wife are standing there, or a pastor and the penitent are standing there, that can all be stripped away. Those are easy calls. Those
Well,
are really easy calls.
Yeah, they're easy calls, but it makes everything more complicated.
It just takes time.
It takes
I don't
time.
see that as, I'm sorry, Yoli, we do disagree.
no,
We get along
sorry.
great, but I don't see that as a concern at all. I
I
don't see that
do.
as,
I mean, I
don't.
see issues with ring cameras. I see issues with things, and the issues that I see is just that it's something that has to be taken into consideration. And sure, there's ways of dealing with it. And if they get a search warrant, sure, they can turn over the raw footage. But when releasing it to the public, they're going to have to redact things, and that makes it more
Exactly. Yeah.
complicated.
I think we agree on that point. I mean, a ring camera, sure. If my neighbor has a ring camera pointing into my yard and my grandkids are playing in the yard, that's a problem. I agree with you on that point. But in a case like this, a double homicide, a grisly double homicide in a neighborhood where, as Lucky pointed out, everybody has these things. I would think like 99% of the people would have those things, and used properly, it's a tool that the prosecution, I would think, would have readily available to them if the LAPD don't blow the case like they did in some other major cases. So, Lucky, what are your final thoughts?
I think there's still going to be a lot of details to come out. And I
Yeah.
think that, right now they're just going over a lot of Nick Reiner's background, because I think that his history is going to play a big part in this case. I mean, it's not like he was just, a model citizen and freaked out and took the lives of his parents. You know, he's got a pretty well documented history of substance abuse, you know, mental issues, stuff like that. So to me, I think that I think I'm going to take Alan Jackson's advice, and I'm just going to kind of let the information come out, and as it comes out, then you know, I'm sure it'll paint a much clearer picture.
I agree with you. We're just days after this crime. We're just days after it. So I'm keeping an open mind to everything.
Absolutely.
Yoli, what are your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts is that I think the mental health is going to play a big role in this. Drug addiction is going to play a big role in this. The family relationship is going to take a big role or be a big role in this. And I also think security footage is going to be important in this case, from the hotel, from the neighborhood, we already saw gas station footage of Nick walking with a backpack. He's walking, and then you see him walking with a different colored backpack. So yeah, all those things are going to come into play, and I just may go to that January 7th hearing. We'll see.
Oh, I hope you do.
Yeah, me too.
I hope we can talk to you outside of the courthouse. I hope you do go. I hope you do go. Lucky, have we shown you our little clip from the Karen Reed trial in our attempt to get new subscribers? Have we shown you that little clip?
I haven't seen it.
Here it is.
You pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Ask it differently. I'm going to allow that.
Well, you know now because you follow. You pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
Yes. I was not paying to any social media.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
Sorry, I have just a few more questions.
It's denied.
I was not paying to any social media.
Okay.
Lucky, thank you so much for coming on this episode. We had originally planned to do a Kohlberger episode, but this came up, and so you agreed to pivot to this. I appreciate that. Hopefully we can collaborate again on some other things, and thank you all. This is longer than most of our episodes. Most of our episodes don't go quite this long, so thank you.
And make sure you subscribe, because I just learned that I was not subscribed to Lucky's channel, which I had subscribed before. So I don't know why I'm unsubscribed, but I'm going to resubscribe. So make sure you're subscribed to Lucky's channel, to Andrew Meyer's channel.
And Yoli's channel.
Oh, and my channel. That's right. I have a channel.
Right.
I don't know why. I don't know how that happens, Yoli. I don't know if you've been reading our comments, but a couple of people have told us that they subscribed and they were unsubscribed. I don't know how that happens.
I mean, on other channels, I had a membership in other channels, and my membership was canceled. And it wasn't anything to do with payment or anything. It just canceled me.
Does that happen to you, Lucky, that people subscribe to you and then they unsubscribe? They get unsubscribed?
It does, and I feel terrible about it because it's nothing that I'm doing, and I've had subscribers in the comments that say, you know, why did you unsubscribe me, or why did you turn off my notifications? And you know, I said I've never done anything like that. I don't know, but it does, as a creator, it makes you look bad, because it makes it look like you're manipulating something when really, you know, that's not the case at all. So, you know, so I always feel bad when it happens.
I feel bad when it happens too, because we work really hard to get subscribers. We put together that little skit. We go out of our way in every episode to ask people to subscribe, and I would certainly ask people to subscribe to your channel if they're not already, and Yoli's channel, because Yoli does some really great episodes also.
Absolutely.
But I just don't understand some of the things that happen on YT. I just don't understand how it is. If I subscribe to your channel, Lucky, which I did a long time ago, why would the gremlins unsubscribe me? Why would that happen? I don't get it.
It's the same thing with comments. You know, I get a lot of, you know, viewers will say, I left a really good comment and then you deleted it. And I you know, I always say I didn't delete any comments. You know, I don't even delete the bad comments. So
me either.
You,
no,
you know,
I tell people, let me have it. You know, I do my best. I make mistakes, correct my mistakes. That's okay. I have my own views. I try to be as objective as I can. As a former reporter, I try to stay objective. but I'm a human. I have viewpoints. I have opinions. I express. If you don't agree with me, don't call me a name. Tell me why you disagree with me. Tell me you've read an article. There's some fact that you know that I don't know or I glossed over. There's some law that you know. I mean, tell me why you disagree. Hit me with your best shot. Sometimes YouTube itself will eliminate comments, but I think that has to do with, their terms of service, whether it's obscenity or you use certain words, which we all know we're not supposed to use. I guess the M word is kind of okay if you don't use it too much. I mean, I know a lot of subscribers go out of their way to say unalived. I hate that word.
I hate it too. I hate it too. And we just this Monday we were doing true crime trivia on my members live.
Okay.
And there were a few questions that said unalived, and I was like, I just can't say that. I can't. It just
either.
bothers me. I cannot say it. But you know what's strange is that I sit and watch mainstream media on YouTube, and they say all the words,
Yeah.
and I'm always thinking, why can't we say the words? Why is it only mainstream media that gets to say the words?
Well, the justification that I'm not, saying they're right or wrong, but the justification that they give is, we have to be sponsor friendly. We don't want to offend our sponsors. We don't want to chase our sponsors away. Well, my response to that is, do you remember the Angela Lansbury show years ago, Murder, She Wrote?
Yeah.
And they got, I forget what network that was on. Was it ABC? I forget, but they got sponsors. I never heard that they had any problem getting sponsors for that show. I can understand not saying George Carlin's 7 dirty words or the other word. There's a really funny episode if you look for it. The 231 or I forget the exact number, but it's 200 plus words you can't say on YouTube. Oh God, Yoli, are we going to get thrown off for my even mentioning that? But it's a funny episode. And this person just goes through over 200 words you can't say. And I'm not going to say any of them.
It's like we're speaking in code, and it's one of those things where I feel like we're trying to get our point across, but we're speaking in code.
Right.
And, I always wonder if our viewers think that we actually really talk that way, but really we're just trying to tap dance around, the algorithm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're trying to tap dance around getting flagged for something, but yeah, YouTube is very strange. I don't know. It's done some strange things to me where I had to actually start over. I had to start like fresh because everything was all screwed up. Plus, I didn't have very many subscribers at the time, but I just had to change everything. It just didn't work for me anymore.
That's really weird. I've had some issues with it also. Lucky, Yoli and I are going to do an episode soon about talking about our backgrounds, and we'll have to talk about it before we do it. But when I got out of high school, I was a rebel. I didn't want to go to college right away, so I spent over a year working on a loading dock in a warehouse. And so you can understand the type of language that I needed to speak to get along with. I mean, they expect you to speak in a certain way. I've spent the rest of my adult life consciously trying to avoid certain words that begin with an F and using them 14 times in one sentence. But being on YouTube, to me, in my mindset, is no different than going to court. You don't talk that way in court, or church. You don't talk that way in church or whatever. So but it is something you have to be conscious of. It's something you have to be very conscious of and speak properly and correctly. But you do a great job. You really do.
Well, I feel like a lot of viewers really do appreciate that. When you're conscious about what you're saying, the true crime community, I feel like it could go either way. I have a lot of people in the comments that say, I appreciate that you don't cuss. I appreciate, that you're conscious about what you're saying. So, to me, I don't need to cuss in my videos. I probably cuss enough in my everyday life that, it's good that I keep it out of my videos,
You and me both. Okay, at the end of every episode, what we do is we ask our viewers who have been with us all the way through to give us an emoji. Lucky, do you have any ideas for an emoji?
I don't. I'm excited to see what they have, though.
Yoli?
Mansions?
Big houses. Okay, if you've been with us through the whole episode, leave us a big house or a mansion emoji. Great idea. Lucky, thank you very much for coming and for pivoting.
And I'm subscribing to Lucky because I just noticed that I'm not subscribed. So.
I appreciate
I better. I subscribed to your channel long time ago.
I
So
did
I'll
a
double
long
check.
time ago, like years ago, like a year and a half ago.
Okay, guys, thank
Right.
you. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.
Whether you are in the grocery store, the gas station, or anywhere else, please remember to be kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. And the same goes for our comment section. We want you to comment, but be nice, be kind, be positive if you can. And thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good one.